So I believe functional medicine may have found a way to help reverse autoimmune disease, all 105 types of it, which could help the 1 in 10 of you worldwide. And I'm living proof as I begin to reverse the worst type of MS anyone could have. And Rita Mustafa, RNCP, believes it too because she's the one helping heal my gut. So in today's video, we're going to show you how Rita helps heal the gut. The same 5 steps that's helped me start reversing my own condition in 90 days and could help you start reversing your condition too. But first, please remember, this isn't medical advice. We're just sharing our experiences. So if you want to try this, consult your medical practitioner. So Rita, I know modern science is starting to do more research in the gut to help heal autoimmune, but you've centered your practice as a gut specialist for over 20 years. What do you know that they're just figuring out?
Well, I think the gut is really important in terms of many health complaints, not just autoimmune, right? So we've always, well, since I've been practicing, right, the gut has always been sort of like the first area we go to whenever there's serious health concerns, because the gut holds 70-80% of our immune system, right? So once that gets injured or imbalanced, then you have to expect that the rest of the body is going to have to show us in one way or another that there's an imbalance. And so generally speaking, the gut is probably the first place we look at with many health conditions.
So regardless, not even autoimmune, all conditions.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be autoimmune.
Could it even be longevity of age, like youthfulness?
Yeah, anxiety, depression. Yeah, lots.
So it all starts in the gut.
Starts in the gut.
So
have to have a healthy gut.
So having a healthy gut means reversing autoimmune, like they're figuring out, and then being youthful. I'm curious about the process that you've been doing with me for a while now, and in 90 days, I started seeing results. That I guess in any health issue they can see results. So, what's your process?
So, the process is the process sounds fairly simple, right? So, there's certain steps that we're going to follow to get you to where you need to be, and like I said, it sounds fairly simple. The problem, not even that's the wrong word, but I think what most people have an issue with is being consistent and going all in, right? So the more chronic or the more severe the condition you have, the more serious you have to be about the steps, right? So
and how many steps are there?
Do like, oh, I'm just going to do this diet only at 50%, right?
Right. So from my memory, you're saying to me that there's 5 steps.
Yeah.
And these 5 steps is what you do to not only begin to reverse autoimmune, but also any disease.
Right.
So you're going to walk us through these 5 steps
on
how anyone can start reversing their health into something stronger.
Yeah. So the first step is probably, I'm assuming most people would know this, is to obviously remove, is to basically remove the triggers. And triggers could be food. It could be medications, not necessarily medications. I'm not saying to get off of medications, but there could be certain medications that are contributing to the problem. And I'll talk about those in a minute. There could also be underlying pathogens. There could be underlying environmental stuff. So maybe there's heavy metals, things like that. So this is sort of like the hardest place to start, but it's the most critical place to start. So we have to look at the diet. We have to look at what are the underlying causes and finding something that's going to work for you in terms of being able to stick to it.
So this is really getting down into an elimination diet, so that you are cleaning up your diet, you're getting rid of the addictive foods, the the sugars, maybe even if it's coffee,
Yeah,
things that just
you definitely have to get rid of things that are going to contribute to your body just being unhealthy, right? So sugars, especially like refined sugars, processed foods, um, seed oils, like all these things that you're hearing about. This is not new information for most people. But the elimination dairy products, gluten, and some of it just seems like a fad, like, oh, just get gluten out of the diet and that's going to fix everything. And it sounds really good. And maybe people will see some relief, but it's not the only fix, right? So when I'm talking about removing and changing your diet, we're trying to find the right diet, number one. The right diet is an elimination diet. How we choose that elimination diet really just depends on how much you're willing to do. But at the end of the day, you do have to take out the foods that are most inflammatory. So the gluten, the dairy, the sugars, the alcohol, the processed foods, the refined salt, right? These are the most common foods that you need to eliminate. And for some people, it gets even more strict in terms of like eliminating, grains and legumes. Like that might be the next thing that people have to go to start to see some relief in their symptoms.
But what if someone was like serious about healing their autoimmune or fixing their health? What what would and they were committed? What would they do?
Yeah, so I would say work with someone. That would be the best way. But in terms of what you need to do diet wise, is you have to find an inflammatory diet, an anti-inflammatory diet that works for you. Or so for some people that means that might be like a strict carnivore diet. For someone else, that might be a strict paleo type diet, right? So again, you have to pick one that you're willing to do 100%.
Right.
100%, right? So if you want to go vegan, that's fine. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, but you can do the vegan thing. But remember, no processed foods. No, probably we're going to take out a lot of carbs. We're going to take out legumes. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult if you're going to choose that one.
So that's why when I first eliminated all the foods and just did a juice cleanse
Yeah,
for 66 days, I had really good results.
you did really well. Yeah. So
And then the second
fasting,
time when
juicing
I
is
went
so
carnivore, keto, then eliminated everything, but only stuck down to meat, salt, and water. I did really well in the 90 days. Although my body went through a massive adjustment period during that time too.
yeah.
So it seemed to be much more, my body was affected much more severe than when I did the juice cleanse. When I did the 66-day juice cleanse, I eliminated everything. My inflammation went right down. My body, I feel, was beginning to heal. But after 66 days, I think, okay, I have to eat something now. My body felt like food. But when I did the keto, my body converting over into from no longer using carbohydrates as fuel to moving into using fat as fuel. I was eliminating everything. So I did this I removed all the triggers, but I also like was pooping a lot because now it was just fat. I didn't have the carbs. I didn't have fiber. And is that typical? Like I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right diet, but it was the elimination. So I did one elimination compared to the other. Is one better than the other? How would I know which one's right for me?
I think you answered your own question because the first time when you did the juicing cleanse, right? So it's it is an elimination diet. So you weren't eating, refined sugars or processed foods and all of that. You were sticking to mainly vegetables and some fruit, and so you were able to bring down the inflammation. You were just able to bring down the inflammation. So whenever you're doing an elimination diet, so whether it's the keto or the juice fast or something, your body's going to go through a form of detoxing also, right? So you have to remember that the body's going to try to repair itself. And so when you when you put less burden on the body, then the body has a better chance of trying to heal itself. Because at the end of the day, that's what the body's always trying to do. It's always trying to heal, right? So we sometimes just get in the way because we have this lifestyle that, we feel we need to be rewarded through food or through whatever it may be, right? Alcohol and things like that. So when you give your chance a body to heal, sometimes it goes right into healing, and that can be uncomfortable. That is something that you might expect if you just automatically go into some kind of elimination diet. Just expect there may be some detoxing reactions happening at the same time. And so for some people, like, it could mean that you're just going to the washroom a lot more. Someone else might feel like they're getting a lot of hives or breakouts, things like that. So it's going to be different for people, but yeah.
So now reversing autoimmune, like I've been keen to do, and you're saying any disease, it's going to start with removing triggers.
It has to start with
removing the triggers. Okay. And then,
removing the triggers. Yeah.
So that means just eliminating, we don't know what's triggering us. And you said it could not only food, but environmental.
Yeah. So and I want to talk about food for a second, because a lot of times we blame the food, right? So we say it's the food that's causing us to be sick, but it actually isn't the food. Yes, it's contributing to the problem, but it's because the environment is not correct, right? So we blame the food and say, oh, it's gluten, oh, it's the dairy, that's the problem, right? And then you eliminate those, you feel better for a while, but then you don't, and then that doesn't last. Why didn't it last? Because you just removed some inflammatory aspects, but we never corrected the environment, right? So this environment inside our bodies, the digestive system, we have to look at that environment. What set it off? What else? What's the underlying? It's usually not just food. We blame food, but it's not just food. We have to correct the environment too.
Right. So in terms of the elimination, when I was doing the diet part, you were also doing things like the foot bath cleanse. You had me on various other detoxing tools to clear out my system.
Castor oil packs. So we were doing a lot of other additional things to help support the body. We also looked at underlying, right? So the underlying causes. So looking at things like pathogens. So, bacteria, parasites, viruses, these could all be potential causes that are causing disruption in the body.
But doesn't the diet itself help with the parasites and all the other things?
Yes and no. So when someone has an overgrowth of pathogens, so whatever, candida or yeast or bacteria, whatever it is, the environment has allowed that to happen, right? So we've damaged the environment enough so that these pathogens can live there. So sometimes just changing the diet, yes, will help correct some of that, but sometimes we still have to go in and control the rest, that environment, right? If that makes sense. So, if there's a lot of yeast, candida, I'll just use that as an example. So if there's a lot of candida or yeast, yes, we can change the diet. Some of that will correct itself, but why was it allowed to grow there? Why was it allowed to flourish there? Because the environment allowed for it. So now we have to change that environment. So we still have to go in and change the environment, usually through herbs and things like that, so that the diet that you choose, the supplements you put in, then the body can use those things properly.
So if Pamela brings a good question about how do you know when you can tell that the inflammation is reduced or that you're actually having success with the elimination part. Now, with Candida, it's going to start, I guess, going away. I've never had it, so I don't know what it's like, but I'm sure a lot of people have, because I hear it's pretty common. But how do you know, beyond seeing those physical changes, or I don't know, what are some of the signs of seeing that inflammation is being reduced when you just can't see it?
So just look at the symptoms that you started with. So if the initial symptoms were, we'll stick with Candida. So let's say it's like sugar cravings, maybe you have some eczema, maybe some like low energy. So I would start with looking at the symptoms. As the environment corrects itself, those symptoms should also start to correct themselves.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's basically, you look at the symptoms that you started with, and then see how they change or don't change. If they're not changing, then we haven't picked up on the right underlying cause.
Okay. So you just keep on going from there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And it's not something that happens quickly, right? You have to remember, like, some people will do it for, like, especially like a cleanse. They'll do like a 15-day cleanse or something, and they'll feel better because you've eliminated a lot of stuff. You've let the body, you've given the body a little bit of relief so that it can do the job it needs to do better. But then either the symptoms will come back or the relief doesn't last for long, right? So those are just signs that it's going to take more than 15 days. It's going to take more than 30 days. It most likely, I would say you at least have to give it 3 months. Whatever you decide to do, or whoever you're working with, you have to give it at least 3 months.
Right. So that 90 days, I had huge success in the 9 days in reducing inflammation, and that was the beginning of reversing my autoimmune disease that anyone can do to remove any disease. But you said 3 months, but I've been doing this for a year and a half. Plus, I've layered in, I guess, a whole bunch of other things, which I'm guessing is the next step. So what is the next step in this?
So the replacing. So we want to make sure. So once we've kind of started to clean up the environment, we've eliminated inflammatory foods, maybe we've worked on some heavy metal issues. Then we have to make sure, now that we might be eating a little bit better, that we are actually breaking down that food and we're actually starting to absorb the nutrients from those foods, right? So this is where we would, and not to say you can't do this at the first step, right? As you're doing the anti-inflammatory diet or have chosen an elimination diet, you can still do enzymes, right? So you can still work on helping the stomach heal, right? So maybe that means like different teas, or definitely digestive enzymes, whether that means enzymes with hydrochloric acid in it or not, it really depends. So, but this is where we start to replace, it's not nutrients at this point. We're just trying to help the body do a better job, right? So we're helping. The stomach is really, we don't talk too much about stomach. We always talk about the gut, meaning like small intestine, large intestine. But the stomach is sort of like, it's this one area where it needs to be very, very acidic, right? So we always talk about, we want our body to be alkaline, and we eat alkaline foods and eat lots of vegetables and stay alkaline. But the stomach is meant to be very, very acidic, and for a number of reasons. So it's to help to break down minerals, also to help kill off any pathogens that might be coming in with our foods or our water. So a lot of times we need to make sure that the stomach is like that first line that we're correcting. So this is where the enzymes come in. And this is where, looking at, if you're on an acid reducer, do I even want to go there? If you're on an acid reducer, this could be decreasing the ability for you to absorb your nutrients from food or even from a supplement. And it also is allowing for pathogens to not be killed off, right? So they will continue into the rest of the digestive system.
So I guess a clear sign of your stomach being off is gas.
Yeah, so a lot of burping, just a lot of feeling full after you eat, like you just feel full for a really long time. Could be acid reflux. Could just be like a heaviness in your chest. Like, these are all signs that a bad breath. Bad breath is another one. So again, these are just signs that the stomach is off. And the cool thing about the body, you just need to be able to recognize it, is the body's always telling us information. It's always giving us information, whether we understand it or whether we do, that we recognize that it's an issue. That's maybe where a practitioner would come in. But yeah, correcting the stomach. So replacing some of the enzymes, although your body makes enzymes and you can get enzymes from food, sometimes we just need a little bit of help. And this is where we can do that.
I know that was a sign with me, the bad breath, that used to always call me on it. So you'd be in the start when I did the elimination, you were also giving me a lot of enzymes. And even now, a year and a half later, as my body's healing from MS, that as we started introducing foods again, you noticed my breath was changing again.
Yeah.
So that means it was the food. I needed to back off again. So I wasn't ready to introduce all these new foods again.
Yeah. So it's just information. The gut isn't totally healed yet, right? So whether that means that's this, in your case, that case probably meant the stomach. So so when I notice the bad breath, that's a sign to tell me it's like, okay, we're not completely healed yet, so we can't just start putting all these new foods in. Like we have been successful in introducing like 4 or 5 new foods, and we can do that pretty much on a regular basis with no issues. And then maybe adding in like the 7th or 8th food, then that starts to cause an issue. So again, it's not the food. The food isn't the issue. It sounds like it is, right? So just take the food out and the problem goes away. But it's not the food. It's the gut that still needs healing. And so we just added more things in to help the gut heal. And then the bad breath goes away. And then that tells me, okay, we're on the right path, right? And then we can try introducing another food.
Okay, so the first step, reversing disease in any autoimmune, even youthfulness, we're talking about remove everything first. So it's like cleaning your closet. You want to get a new wardrobe, you got to empty out your closet first and get all the old stuff out. And then you are replacing. And that was a horrible analogy I'm getting down, but then you're replacing, you're doing the digestive enzymes, or you're ensuring the food is being broken down properly so that you're avoiding fermentation, you're avoiding the gas, the bad breath, and so on.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
Okay. Then there's a third step. What are we getting into in the third step?
Okay, so it's called reinoculation, but really another word for that is like repopulating or like reseeding. So now it's like, now we're getting a little bit lower into the digestive tract. So now we want to make sure, so the small intestine is where we absorb our nutrients. And this is where a lot of leaky gut type symptoms happen. So this is, again, you've probably heard a lot of people on the internet talking about leaky gut, but it's not just leaky gut. So if the job of the small intestine is to absorb nutrients from your foods, but the small intestine is, compromised for whatever reason, then you could be eating the best foods, you can be taking the most expensive supplements, but it won't be helpful because the intestines aren't healing. So what we want to do is we want to correct that environment now. We want to reseed it, or we want to repopulate it with good guys, right? So we want to be able to crowd out the bad guys. So this is where our prebiotics are important, our probiotics, our fermented foods. So this is sort of when we can start to introduce this.
So is there any point in adding pre and probiotics? So reintroducing this stuff if your gut and stomach is still off?
So, I mean, you could try. So a lot of times we just throw everything at it in the beginning, right? Because most people are just so unwell, they just want to feel better. And so what happens if you do this step too early is that a lot of people will feel worse in the way of like more gas, more bloating, more maybe even diarrhea or constipation. So if we're introducing it too early or we're choosing the wrong prebiotics, probiotics, then yeah, the symptoms might get worse. And again, we're going to blame the supplements, right? And say, well, these aren't any good. They make me feel worse, or they give me diarrhea, or they whatever, right? So again, it's not that it's the supplements. It's not the right time. Could also be just, I'll use leaky gut or candida. Actually, I'll use candida as an example because candida is a yeast, right? So if the intestines have this overgrowth, and then you just go put more bacterias and yeasts in, so now you're just adding to it, right? So even though they're good guys, but now you've got this bad crowd, and you're just adding more people into the crowd. So that doesn't necessarily fix it, right? So we're not able to fix it.
So if I think of it like your closet of clothes, you have all your old clothes in there, but you go out shopping, you buy all new clothes, and you stuff it in there before you take the old stuff out.
Exactly. So you're just putting more clothes in the closet, thinking like this will be better. This will be better.
Yeah.
Right. And so yeah, that's a really good analogy. So we need to take out the old clothes so that the new ones that come in, you can see them. You can, they will do what they're meant to do.
So the first step in reversing autoimmune disease is to get rid of and empty out that closet, then replace and get in the enzymes and the help breaking it down, help to put it all into a garbage bag and get all your old clothes out of the house so you have the room. And then the reinoculate, you're talking about you're talking about restoring the microbiome. So this is getting all the new pre and probiotics foods in. And what are those foods? I know there's like a bunch of yogurts and stuff that you can get, but what is a probiotic and what's a prebiotic?
Okay,
where do you get them?
Yeah, so probiotic basically is good bacteria, right? So those are probiotics. Prebiotics are actually fiber, different types, there's different kinds, that actually feed the good bacteria, right? So sometimes even when you're looking at buying a probiotic in the store, sometimes you'll see probiotics sold with a prebiotic, right? So they normally go together. And even if you decide you're not going to do supplements, but you want to put pre and probiotics into your body naturally through food, then that's when you would use, like your good bacteria. So you can use kombucha tea, you can use fermented foods, you can use yogurt. I'm kind of hesitant with yogurt because really yogurt, we don't know if it's actually fermented or if they're just adding the probiotics in.
Because that's like with some fermented foods, which is, I guess, just rotting cabbage or beets or something, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's creating this good bacteria. But I know some of them, you can buy it on the shelf in the grocery store, or you can buy it in the fridge.
Right.
And I'm guessing the stuff in the fridge is alive, and the things on the shelves are fake.
So yeah, fermented foods basically is where we're using nature to create a ferment or to create natural bacteria and probiotics, right? So different fermented foods will have different strains of bacteria. So sauerkraut is probably the most common, I think, fermented foods that people would be familiar with, right? So just cabbage that's been fermented. And it's not like with vinegar, it's just water, cabbage, and salt. We just let that ferment naturally, and it creates this delicious food. I use it often, and yeah, and it's full of great bacterias, which again are good for the gut. But for some people, they may notice symptoms of gas and bloating, and that's just a sign that either your gut's not ready or you still need to clear out the old guys.
So if I was going to buy it from the store, what would be the ingredients on that fermented food?
That's basically it. The food itself, so cabbage, salt, and water. And there might be some spices. There might be some dill or some caraway seeds or something. That's totally fine. The stuff on the shelf that you were talking about, like sauerkraut that's in a jar sitting on the shelf, that's not fermented. That's like pickled, or I don't know what other word to use for it. But the cabbage itself is very, has its own benefits. Cabbage is actually really nice for healing ulcers throughout the digestive system. So it doesn't matter if it's like ulcers in the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine. So cabbage has some really great benefits. But if you're buying it in a jar that's sitting on the shelf, you're not getting any of the good bacterias.
Okay, so probiotics is the good bacteria.
Yeah.
Prebiotics is the fuel source or the food
Correct.
for this alive bacteria.
Yeah.
Does that mean that the cabbage itself, it has both? It has both prebiotics and probiotics in there, or do you need something separate?
You usually don't need anything separate. It's fiber, basically. We're trying to get fiber. Sometimes we do, again, it just depends on how serious the condition is. Sometimes we will just add a specific like prebiotic. But again, you can get it through foods. Like Jerusalem artichoke is an example. It's not my favorite, but I mean, it is one way to get a prebiotic in. And the probiotic that we tend to use has something called FOS in it, fructooligosaccharides. So that's a prebiotic.
Is that added in or it's created?
No, it's added in. It's added into the probiotic. So you can get probiotics with the prebiotic or without, right? So it really just depends on what's going on in the gut and what the gut can handle at that time. And then even when we're talking about probiotics, I'm sure if you've been to the store and looked in the refrigerated section at all the different probiotics, there are numerous probiotics. And sometimes it can be daunting to kind of just stand there and say, which one do I pick? Do I pick the one with the most billions of probiotic of strains? Like how many strains? How strong do I want it? Do I want soil-based probiotics? Do I want human strain probiotics? Like it's a lot. It's a lot of information for a lot of people. So basically, you can start with food and see how you do with food. But if you're someone that, really dislikes fermented foods, kefir is another one. I see someone mention kimchi. That's another great fermented food. Lots of spice. If you like spice, then kimchi would also be good. Lots of great bacteria in there, lots of different strains. And then yogurts and kefir, generally speaking, I'm going to be recommending like a non-dairy one, like a coconut one. And you can make them yourselves. Yes, that's true. But most health food stores will have these in the refrigerated section also.
Okay, so we've gone through the first 3 stages now of first clean the environment up, then replace and add digestive enzymes and help get the stomach working. Then you reinoculate, you start getting the pre and probiotics, so making the body alive again, being able to process. So is the body repaired now?
Um, no. So most likely it's not. I would say it's probably still. Remember, this is like we're talking about like months and months at a time, right? So you might still need to repair the gut. And how are you going to know? I would again just look at your symptoms. What did you start with, right? If you started with joint pain, is the joint pain totally gone, or does it come and go? Okay, so we're not completely done yet. So then we would do things to help heal the gut. So things like glutamine. So glutamine is probably a key ingredient in healing the gut and repairing. And the most popular food with glutamine is bone broth. And so you've probably heard a lot about bone broth, and it has many different properties to it, the collagen aspect, the what's the other word I'm looking for? The collagen, the gelatin, also, and one of the main properties in bone broth that's done properly is the glutamine aspect, which is the healer of the gut. And then there's also other amino acids in there that also help heal the gut, help with the inflammation, help soothe the gut. And so, so not to say that you can't add, glutamine at any other step, but generally speaking, you don't want to just, let's say, do the first three and then stop, right? You don't want to do the first three steps and say, okay, I'm good, right? You want to make sure that the gut is truly healed. And so, doing things like bone broth would be a great way to help repair.
Okay, so all of the other steps of elimination, digestive enzymes, and the gut pre and probiotics, the 3 steps before, now we're in the fourth stage of repair. And we're now repairing with like things like you said, bone broth, glutamine, zinc, collagen, omega 3s. Now we're actually in the repair stage.
Yeah. So now we're physically adding in things that help repair. Especially in leaky gut, they talk about junctions. So when you think of the small intestine, remember, is where the body absorbs nutrients. And so we want to restore the integrity of that small intestine so that we can now start absorbing our nutrients better.
Wow. All right. That's a huge amount of work. It's interesting because, in that first stage of removing the triggers, I felt better at 90 days. Then I had a full year of slight repair and changes as we did the digestive enzymes, did the pre and probiotics, and then adding in the collagen and the beef. And that was like a year.
Yeah.
That I started seeing that actually I got almost, my body was getting worse all that time, but I was feeling better in certain things. Like my brain fog was going, my mind was getting better, my voice started coming back. I had other moments of strength, and that would be short term, but it wouldn't last.
Yeah.
So that means I just had to keep going and keep doing all those things.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's no like fixed timeline. It's not like I can say like, here, just do this for 3 months and you'll be all better. There's so many things. There's so many things that the body has to do to repair. And, and it's not just what we're talking about here today. It's still, how do you manage your stress? Do you get sunlight? Do you get exercise? Are you drinking water? Are you doing all the other stuff that go with it? So, and so don't be hard on yourself if after 3 or 6 months, like you're not noticing like huge changes. Just know that you're on the right path, right? Look at the little things. If you're still stuck after a year, then, maybe there's something underlying that still just it hasn't been addressed yet. And so there's just maybe a little bit more work to do. And I mean, there are tests that you can do for different things. There's tests to find out, if you have leaky gut. There's a zonulin test that you can do. There's a heavy metal test. Maybe you have heavy metals that are underlying and contributing to the issue. So we could run tests for that. We can run gut tests. A lot of people seek me out for this one particular test called an organic acids test, and it's a gut test, and it is actually a urine test, but it tests for all these metabolites in the body and gives us a lot of information in terms of pathogens in the body, neurotransmitters that are being affected, some deficiencies that might be going on, your ability to detox. So there are lots of tests out there. So do I usually start people with tests? I don't. I usually like to just do these steps. And if if you're still not seeing changes, then maybe this is where you can start looking at tests to kind of rule out other things.
So we've pretty much outlined the 5 steps of me reversing my way of autoimmune disease. And so these are the things that you did with me that I've done on my own. Removed the triggers, cleaned up the diet, and I went with the elimination route. Then we started doing the replacing. I was doing a lot of foot fasts and detoxing, heavy metal detoxing. Then there was, I guess the reintroducing of certain nutrients. I was getting the nutrients because I was doing a keto, a meat keto way. I was eating a lot of tallow, which is a lot of nutrients in there. I was doing the bone broth. So I was repairing the gut. My breath was starting to go away. I started introducing foods in. I started introducing foods after 1 year of eating really beef salt water. That was it. Before I started introducing ketchup and mustard, basic things. And then now it's zucchini and cauliflower. But then my breath started changing. We noticed there was something there. So you started giving me enzymes.
Enzymes and kefir. Those were that's what we added in.
All right. So the enzymes are helping the stomach building more acid to break down.
Yeah.
Or you said it was with HCl and not. So HCl is the acid in the stomach. Was it with or without HCl?
The hydrochloric acid. So some people will need that little bit extra acid in their stomach to help break down the food a little better. But I mean, if someone has ulcers or something like that, then that's not recommended. So yeah, just work with someone if you do have issues before starting to add in some of these supplements. But even if you don't add in the supplements, so think about the probiotics, the kefir, which is a fermented. We do coconut milk kefir for you, and it's basically just coconut milk and then the ferment, the kefir. So and then it just tastes like sour coconut milk. That's basically what it tastes like.
Right. Well, I know. So I kind of like it. So it's good. And then you talk about the rebalancing part, which is the meditation, stress management, whatever else. But that's actually where I started 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I started with higher consciousness, with meditations, with getting out of my body, thinking that was the main part of repair. But it was through doing that part that I gained the knowledge to seek out these people and then talk to you about it by doing something different. And you've been managing the part that I've been doing different with the extreme keto and whatever else. So these are the 5 stages. And that's why, people are shocked. People that see me and know me and they see that you have MS, especially the ones that saw me in December to where I am now 8 months later in August, that even you can hear it in my voice and talking to you, I could never have this. That's how I was off YouTube for 2 years, because I couldn't speak. It was labored and tiring just to speak. But now I realized maybe last month when we started doing these lives again, that my voice is beginning to boom and it's quite loud now. And I have that energy and stamina. So this is after a year and a half, but even though I started noticing changes within 90 days, it's a long-term thing. And I know I still have a long way to go. I'm not going to change anything. It's going to keep doing that. Is that the right path for me? Am I doing it all right?
Yeah. Those 5 steps could be something that you just continue on for years, right? So remember when we first talked about removing the triggers and we blame foods, right, for a lot of the issues. And it doesn't mean that this might be like your lifestyle now. So it's like very simple, not, maybe your body just will never go back to gluten, and maybe your body will never go back to eating dairy products. But I think you can live with that, right? If you can have everything else and, just avoid those two foods, because that's just, those are continuous triggers for you, then that's fine, right? Because now you know to listen to your body, right? And because yours is neurological, and this is, neurological issues take a long time to repair. It's, 1 year is probably not going to do it, right? But to see even the amount of change that you've seen in this 1 year, at least it gives you some, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like, at least you don't feel defeated, right? Because you were doing all the right stuff before, except we weren't, right?
Yeah.
So you used food a lot as your comfort, right? So even though it was vegan or gluten-free, it was excessive, right? So yeah, but at the same time, it's also your mindset. Your mindset changed to where it's, I'm going to do this, right? 100%, not like I'm just going to do it for the weekend and feel better.
Yeah, I say I hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
It felt that way, anyways, when I just was losing more and more of my mobility. Really, when I lost the strength in my right foot, I couldn't drive anymore. I couldn't really walk properly. I was losing on that, and that's why I made the big decision to change the food and really eliminate absolutely everything. And I felt confident that was it. And I felt better after 90 days, just like I felt better when I did the juice cleanse. But I reintroduced all those other foods way too quickly and too many options at the same time. I didn't do it long enough. And now that I've been doing this a long time, I'm starting to see changes. So that first step in removing the autoimmune or reversing autoimmune, as you said, like or any disease. And the more and more I'm seeing this, I said there's 105 different autoimmune diseases that they've roughly identified, and it's affecting 800 million people around the world, which is an absolute astronomical number. And that's essentially 1 in 10 worldwide that we can start reversing this. But I guess that's also why we know there's a lot of processed foods around the world. There's a lot of sugars and sweets, and some people have more sugars in their diets than others. So these 5 stages is actually working with autoimmune. Science is now figuring it out as well. But we've also touched on supplements. And I guess next time we're going to talk about those supplements and how we can use supplements on that. But supplements isn't the start of this. It almost seems like it's layered in this. It's not the end all be all. Because I mean, that seems to be what everyone is pushing is all the vitamin places, supplements. That's not really the starting stage for when you're talking about reversing disease. Would you agree?
I didn't hear that last part. Sorry.
All good. All good. I was just saying the supplements we're going to talk about it next time.
Yes.
So we won't go deep into it, but it seems to be a big push by a lot of people that they need to take supplements in order to reverse their disease. But that's not it at all.
Yeah, there's the thing with social media is it's great, but it's also a lot of information, right? And everyone has the magic cure. There's no magic cure. The magic cure is you got to work on yourself. We have to stop looking outside of ourselves to heal. We need to do this from within, right? Yes, supplements, yes, food. Like there's a lot of things that will help us get to where we need to go, but looking outside of ourselves for answers isn't how the body heals, right? We are responsible for our healing, right? So it's nice that there's a lot of information out there, but sometimes it can make you a little crazy, because it's like everyone has the magic cure, and there is no magic cure. It's just a lot of work and a lot of, tuning into why this is happening, and tuning into just your body again. How many people are just disconnected from how their body works, right? I have a lot of people that are just so disconnected. The most common one is they'll book an appointment. It's like, oh, I have stomach issues. Oh, okay, so tell me about your stomach issues. I know where the stomach is. So then it's like, well, can you point to where you're like where your stomach issues are? Like, that's not your stomach, right? So they'll point to their lower abdomen. It's like, that's not the stomach, right? And so that's just one example. But sometimes we are disconnected from how the body works, and so by reconnecting again to just figuring out how the body works, what is actually working for us, and finding, just being able to tune in and find out what is working for us. And hopefully that these talks help you kind of identify what you can work on, and get you to feeling better.
Yeah, well, I spent the first 10 years of this developing my ability to tune in.
Yeah.
And after 10 years and had a 6 Kundalini awakening, did I get some more knowledge and information that then brought us to where we need to. And now we're hopefully sharing this with the world so that you all can reverse your disease, reverse your autoimmune. But as you said, next time we'll talk about supplements. And the supplements are the big ones, or the additions to support this. But this is the first 5 stages to eat your way out of autoimmune disease, any disease, even longevity and health. This seems to be the key. So I want to thank everybody for joining us and being a part of this. Thanks for your comments, and thanks Brandita for the jewels. And I guess we'll see you all next week, where we talk about supplements. Adding this. Thanks everybody. This is great. Thanks Rita.